Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Robert Menendez? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the alleged crime, then offer my analysis. Robert Menendez was born on January 1, 1954, in New York City. He went by the name Bob. His father was a carpenter, and his mother was a seamstress. His parents had just left Cuba a few months before he was born. Bob's family moved to Union City, New Jersey, which is where he grew up. Union City is at the west end of the Lincoln Tunnel, so right across the Hudson River from Manhattan. After graduating from high school in 1972, Bob earned a bachelor's degree in political science and then completed law school. He became a lawyer in 1980. In 1986, he was elected as the mayor of Union City. He was a member of the New Jersey State Legislature from 1988 until 1993, when he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. He stayed in that job until 2006, when he was appointed to the Senate to fill another senator's term. Later that same year, he ran to retain his seat and was victorious. Bob successfully ran again in 2012. In 2015, Bob was accused of helping a Florida surgeon fight accusations of Medicare fraud in exchange for almost $1 million in gifts. He went on trial in 2017. A mistrial was declared after the jury failed to reach a verdict. Despite his acquittal, the Senate Ethics Committee severely admonished Bob, and he was ordered to repay the gifts. This should have been the end of his political career, but amazingly, Bob's fellow Democrats stood behind him, and he was reelected to the Senate in 2018. In 2020, Bob married a woman named Nadine Arslanian after they dated for about 2 years. Now moving to the timeline of the alleged crime. In September of 2023, Bob, his wife Nadine, and 3 others were named in a 39-page federal indictment. Here is a summary of that indictment. It's worth noting these are allegations made by the government. All 5 defendants maintain the presumption of innocence. Not long after Bob and Nadine first met in 2018, Nadine introduced Bob to a longtime friend of hers who went by the name Will Hanna. He lived in New Jersey, but he was from Egypt. Will had 2 business associates relevant to this case, a New Jersey real estate developer named Fred Davies, and a man named Jose Uribe, who worked in the trucking business. Between 2018 and 2022, Bob and Nadine accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bribes from Will, Fred, and Jose. The government claimed that in exchange, Bob used his power and influence as a senator to benefit the Egyptian government and to protect the interests of Will, Fred, and Jose. Here are a few examples of the allegations. Will Hanna was able to pay Bob bribes because Egypt gave Will's company a monopoly on a certain kind of religious certification for food the United States exported to Egypt. The company did not have any experience in this area. This monopoly drove up costs for U.S. meat suppliers and caused the USDA to contact Egypt and tell them to reconsider the monopoly. Bob intervened and told a USDA official to stop opposing the monopoly. In exchange for this, Will paid $23,000 to bring Nadine's home mortgage current and arranged to have 3 $10,000 checks issued to Nadine for a low or no-show job. Bob attempted to disrupt a criminal prosecution of an associate of Jose and a criminal investigation of one of Jose's employees. Both cases involved possible insurance fraud. In exchange, Jose paid $15,000 in cash to Nadine that she used toward the purchase of a 2019 Mercedes-Benz C300 convertible. After that, Jose made the car payments for about 3 years. Bob supplied Egyptian officials with highly sensitive non-public information and wrote a letter to persuade other U.S. senators to release a hold on $300 million in aid to Egypt. He told Egyptian officials that he would remove holds on foreign military financing and the sale of military equipment. And in October of 2018, Fred was charged with federally obtaining loans under false pretenses from a New Jersey bank he founded. Between 2020 and 2022, Bob attempted to influence the federal prosecution of Fred. In exchange, Bob received cash, furniture, and gold bars. In June 2022, the FBI searched the New Jersey home of Bob and Nadine. They found over $480,000 in cash. Much of it was stuffed in envelopes and hidden in closets, clothing, and a safe. Nadine also had over $70,000 in cash in a safe deposit box. Some of the envelopes had fingerprints or DNA from Fred or a driver who worked for Fred. In the home, there were over $100,000 worth of gold bars, which were provided by either Will or Fred. Bob Menendez was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit bribery, 1 count of conspiracy to commit honest services fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit extortion under the color of official right. The first charge carries a maximum of 5 years in prison. The other 2 carry a maximum of 20 years in prison. Nadine is facing the exact same charges as her husband Bob. Will, Fred, and Jose were charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit bribery and 1 count of conspiracy to commit honest services fraud. In light of these serious charges against Bob, many politicians have asked him to resign. Bob denied the charges and has refused to give up his position as a senator. He said, quote, "For years, forces behind the scenes have repeatedly attempted to silence my voice and dig my political grave. Since this investigation was leaked nearly a year ago, there has been an active smear campaign of anonymous sources and innuendos to create an air of impropriety where none exists," unquote. Bob went on to accuse prosecutors of misrepresenting the normal work of a congressional office. He continued by saying, quote, "Not content with making false claims against me, they have attacked my wife for the long-standing friendships she had before she and I even met," unquote. Bob also brought his ethnicity into the equation when he said, quote, "Those behind this campaign simply cannot accept that a first-generation Latino American from humble beginnings could rise to be a U.S. Senator and serve with honor and distinction," unquote. Bob claimed that he had been falsely accused and refused to back down. He believed the people of New Jersey would see through the smoke and mirrors and recognize his innocence. To be fair, New Jersey residents are accustomed to having to see through smog, which is like smoke. Bob claimed that he worked every day for the people of New Jersey and has stood steadfast against dictators around the globe. He does not want to be distracted by the allegations. I don't think that Bob is too worried about prison. After all, how much worse can it be than living in New Jersey? About the federal government, Bob said, quote, "They wrote these charges as they wanted. The facts are not as presented. Prosecutors did that the last time, and look what a trial demonstrates. People should remember that before accepting the prosecutor's version," unquote. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1, the indictment listed a lot of inculpatory evidence. I'd be surprised if Bob is able to escape a conviction this time. In addition to all the physical evidence, like the gold bars and piles of cash, Bob and Nadine sent a number of messages which make them look pretty guilty. It does not appear as though Bob tried very hard to cover up his crimes. This is consistent with a sense of entitlement, like he believed he deserved what he could get, whether it was obtained legally or not. It's also possible that the mistrial in 2017 empowered Bob to think that he was invincible. He falsely viewed that outcome as strengthening his position, forgetting the fact that being charged in the first place made him look corrupt. Item number 2, Bob and Nadine had a magical love story. They were introduced by the owner of an international House of Pancakes restaurant. Nadine said that she thought Bob was very intelligent and very, very hot. It appears as though at least one New Jersey resident failed to see through the smoke. Nadine was unemployed when she met Bob, but in June of 2019, she started an international consulting business. The same day she started her business, her house in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, went into foreclosure. In October of 2019, Bob proposed to Nadine in front of the Taj Mahal. Nadine was sitting on a bench as Bob stood behind her. Bob attempted to sing the song Never Enough from the musical The Greatest Showman. The severity of the corruption case pales in comparison to the way that Bob butchered that poor song. I find it ironic that he selected the song Never Enough and was later caught with gold bars and envelopes stuffed with cash. The title of that song represented his attitude toward life. Item number 3. Bob's alleged criminal behavior is not surprising considering he is a New Jersey politician. New Jersey's rate of crime per politician is the highest of any state in the Union. The politicians there are more likely to commit a crime, but the citizens of New Jersey are less likely to engage in criminal behavior, probably because they're suffering too much to worry about crime. This difference between politicians and citizens is similar to the dynamic observed in the state of Rhode Island. Some states have the opposite dynamic. For example, in New Mexico, the politicians are less likely to engage in crime and the citizens are more likely. New Jersey possesses a quality that draws politicians into criminal behavior. Maybe it's something in the air. For example, one of the gifts Bob and Nadine received as part of the alleged bribery scheme was an air purifier. That must have been one massive purifier if it was intended to protect them from the air in New Jersey. Not long after Bob and Nadine met, she introduced him to her friend Will, almost like Nadine was expecting Bob to be corrupt. Her friend said that they didn't really see much of Nadine after she started dating Bob. Perhaps Nadine had fantasies about being the wife of a corrupt official. For example, she has posed for photographs with cast members from the TV shows Mob Wives and The Real Housewives of New Jersey. Item number 4. For many years, conspiracy theorists have been claiming that public officials were involved in massive conspiracies involving military aid, foreign nations, and the manipulation of the criminal justice system. These types of conspiracies are unlikely, yet in the case of Bob Menendez, it appears as though he was involved in a wide-reaching conspiracy with international intrigue. Bob serves as a reminder that not all conspiracy theories are false. I find it curious that to defend against the conspiracy alleged by federal prosecutors, Bob invoked a conspiracy theory about prosecutors going after him because of his ethnicity. He just had to shove one more conspiracy theory into the case. Item number 5. On the official Bob Menendez website, there's a list of requests with which Bob's office cannot offer assistance. These are things that people must have asked him to do, and he is saying he can't help. For example, his office cannot compel an agency to act in someone's favor, influence matters involving private businesses, or intervene in legal situations. Bob forgot to add an important reminder to his message. He can do all these things for someone who has gold bars, piles of cash, and no fear of going to prison. This is why proofreading is so important. I'm amazed Bob forgot to include that critical exception to his rules. Now moving to my final thoughts. This case can be summarized in this way. A cash-strapped woman connected with a corrupt senator. After crafting a courtship containing cacophonous crooning, the couple commenced a criminal conspiracy clinching cash, commodities, and a convertible as compensation. Ultimately, they will encounter court and confront confinement. Those are my thoughts on the case of Robert Menendez. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.